Many aspire to the great British tradition of a high-flying university education. But that can seem an impossible dream for some at street level in an inner-city sixth-form college.
There's real energy, real talent and real hopes of realising their full potential at university.
I think I'm a little old. But also real worries they can't afford the new, bigger tuition fees.
Have you got any fears about university?
Just finances, it's quite scary, like you don't know how you're going to do if you're going to ever pay back.
And I don't want to be in debt for the rest of my life, like, you know, when you talk to adults and they're all like, oh, I've got to pay off my student loan.
It's just worrying. Sometimes you think my dreams will come true.
But maybe their dreams will come true. Here comes Dan with the kids, Martin, with a lesson on loans.
It isn't my job to persuade you to go to university. It isn't my job to persuade you to take one of these loans out. But if you don't understand the true cost, how can you decide if it's worth it? How much do tuition fees cost? 9,000. Technically, it's between 6,000 and 9,000. The real change in uni costs has been for new starters from 2012 onwards in England, where most tuition fees are now £9,000 a year. If you do a 3-year course, how much will it cost you? If any of you are thinking, I cannot afford to go to university, wrong, not true. Whether you're 18 or 80, no first-time UK undergraduate has to pay up front. The Student Loans Company pays their tuition fees of up to £9,000. And if you're under 60, you get a loan for living costs too.
A cup of tea can be an aid to concentration.
They don't start repaying this combined loan until after they've left university.
Kaylee Simmons gave her parents a shocking surprise when, at the ripe old age of 22, she decided she wanted to go to university to study forensic computing. She computed a colossal cost.
It does worry me that you just think, am I ever actually going to get out of home? Am I going to be able to actually live after university?
As a parent,
like many parents, Kaylee's mum panicked at the idea of a £40,000 debt for tuition fees and living allowance.
This came out of the blue, so we weren't financially prepared for any of this.
Why would you need to be financially prepared?
Because it costs a lot of money to go to university.
I'm going to ask my question again, and I'm not trying to be mean or horrible, but I want to understand what you're thinking. Why do you have to be prepared for her to go to university?
Because we've been told when she leaves university, she will probably have a debt of over £40,000.
While she's your daughter and you love her, she's 22 years old, she's an adult, it's her responsibility. You may want to help her and you may want to ensure that she's all right, but stop labouring this on your shoulders. It's her life, her choice and her education that she's getting. And I think we need to stop.
Kaylee's parents were considering how they could pay all the fees up front.
And we've thought, maybe it might be better for us to remortgage.
Oh, I'm so glad you're here, because that sends a shiver of fear through me hearing you say that. I think that could be one of the biggest financial mistakes you would have ever made in your life. So
Okay.
I'm very, very glad we're having to have a conversation.
I'm really glad you said that, because it's worried us.
The hype around the changes to student finance is scaring some into making what could be the wrong decision. So let's go back to some elementary mathematics. This is the crucial number. If you don't earn over £21,000 a year once you've been to university, you do not have to repay a penny. If you don't get a job, if you're unemployed, if you're not working, you do not have to repay.
So even if you earn £20,000 a year, you wouldn't have to pay back?
No, not a penny. They put these here for us to eat, but I'm going to use them to explain, actually. Right, so each brownie's 10 grand. Kaylee's uni costs 4 brownies. There we go. That'll represent £40,000. That is the student loan. And you look at that and you think that's a huge amount of debt. But it's also a mostly irrelevant number, because it bears very little resemblance to what you may have to repay. For a simple fact, you're looking at me askance.
I am, absolutely. I'm trying to understand what you're trying to tell me.
OK, what can I use now? Water in this glass will represent any repayments. The debt wipes after 30 years, so whatever you've repaid or not repaid, after 30 years it stops. You must understand the amount you repay is governed almost entirely by how much you earn. If you never earned over £21,000 in the 30 years, you repay nothing. So this is an irrelevance because you repay nothing. Does that make sense?
Yes.
I'm beginning to understand.
You're beginning to understand. If you earn £22,000, how much do you repay?
9%.
Yeah. 9% of everything you earn above £21,000. How much above £21,000 is £22,000? What's 9% of 1,000? 90, correct? £90 a year. That's all you repay if you earn £22,000. If you earn £31,000 a year, how much do you repay?
800.
900. Who said that? Good maths, high five. Yeah, simple. You earn £31,000. That's £10,000 above the 21,000. 9% of that is £900 a year. Yes. This should allay many parents' number one fear. How would my child repay the loan if they got a poorly paid job? The answer, they'd either pay little or nothing. So if you earned £20,000 one year and then £30,000 the next year, in the year you earned £20,000, you repay nothing. In the year you earned £30,000, you repay 9% of £9,000, which is 810 quid. And in the following year, if you lost your job, so you earned nothing again, how much would you repay?
Martin, there's been a lot of anger and confusion about these changes to student finances. But are you saying it's not that bad?
No, but I do think the political spittle that's flown on this has caused everyone to misunderstand it because it's been about the politics, not the actual financial argument. But the point of what I'm trying to do here is say, actually, you can still afford to go to university. And that message is so important that we don't disenfranchise a whole generation of young people.
Yeah, and this £21,000, is it going to rise with inflation?
Well, the government has said it's intending to increase it with average earnings from 2017. So roughly, yes, but that's an intention, not a guarantee.
OK, and if we have a change of government, is all this set in stone or could things change again?
Well, government is what's called omnicompetent. They can change anything. But what we've seen in the past is when they've changed student loans before, it's only affected new starters after that date. So the system you start university under tends to remain. It's not guaranteed, but I think you need to plan on that basis.
As we've seen, many parents are petrified about children at university shouldering the burden of debt.
I can't believe you're leaving home.
For the rest of their lives.
What am I going to do without you? But, actually, well, I don't want to inure you to the thought of debt. For me, student loans are very different. You have to shelve your preconceptions. And don't judge a book by its cover. Because while it's called a loan, it actually has many of the same characteristics as a tax, and it's perhaps nearer that than to a traditional debt. And that means, to really understand it, you have to think about it in a totally different way.
There's two words that frighten me: loan and debt.
And this is both.
This is both.
I tend to see it far more like a tax, right? You pay tax depending on what you earn.
Yeah.
The more you earn, the more you repay.
Yeah.
You repay it through the payroll. She never gets the money and pays it to anyone. It's taken out before she gets a salary. It's paid like income tax. Do you not know that?
No.
No? OK.
In the dining hall, everything goes like clockwork.
Tickety-boo. If you're self-employed, you repay the loan through self-assessment, just like tax. For everyone else, it's kicked into touch by your employer at source. So, no one's chasing you for the cash. I want some money, not me. No, don't look at me like that, darling. No nasty man is going to come to you. You're safe. Don't worry. It's fine. Unlike tax, this does not go on your credit file. Lenders can't see it, but if they ask you, you have to tell them. You wouldn't panic save to pay your children's tax bill if they became a high earner. So why is this different just because it's called a loan? It's estimated that somebody on a starting salary of £35,000 starting, and with it then rising above inflation, only if you're earning that much would you clear the debt at £6,000 a year plus living allowance.
And that's the cheapest full-time course available.
You're not going to clear it in full on a £6,000 course. The extra cost of going on a £9,000 course, you don't pay any more. So please choose the course that is best for you, the one that you're most passionate about. Go for it. As what you earn after university governs what you pay, earn little, pay little. And apart from extreme cases, earn more, repay more. And with interest over time, that can mean repaying in total a lot more than you borrowed. Let's say you get a fantastic job that pays you a fortune. Well, you'll be repaying quickly, and there's interest added to this, and you will repay way more than the 40,000. So you're focused and fixated on this borrowing sum. But what really counts is the repayment. And as you can see, the repayment could be anywhere between nothing and 120 grand.
Right.
But you'd only pay 120 grand if...
She's a high earner.
Exactly. If she's a low earner...
She pays nothing.
She pays nothing. Conceptually, the name loan scares you. When I explain the practicals, I hope it's less scary.
Yes, it is less scary.
One way to think of this is, financially, at least, a no-win, no-fee system. You don't get a job, you don't earn enough, you don't have to repay.
It's so interesting. But Martin, how can these graduates afford to live once they start paying off these big loans?
Well, there's precedent here. Think about this. Those who start in 2012 and beyond repay 9% of everything over £21,000. Their predecessors, 9% of everything over £16,000. So this lot actually have more money in their pocket when they're repaying more disposable income, though they're going to be repaying a lot longer, probably the full 30 years in many people's cases.
And how will this, affect their ability to get a mortgage?
Well, compared to not having a student loan, of course it's worse because there's less disposable income, but hopefully by going to university, many people will earn more. And again, contrast to predecessors, because we know they've been able to do it, you actually have more money in your pocket, more disposable income, so it's easier to get a mortgage in the early years, though because you're repaying for longer, in the later years it's more difficult. Overall, it's roughly neutral.
And how does all this affect part-timers?
Well, since 2012, part-time students have been able to get loans for tuition fees too, although fees have gone up, but they can't get living loans. But overall, it's roughly the same thing, you're just borrowing less.
Now for the last money teaser of the series.
Parents, what should you do if you want to help your kids to go to university?
Well, Kathy Simmons was terrified when 22-year-old daughter Kaylee suddenly announced she wanted to get a degree. Tuition and living fees would cost more than £40,000.
There's two words that frighten me: loan and debt.
And this is both.
This is both.
So she considered drastic action.
And we've thought, maybe it might be better for us to remortgage.
I think that could be one of the biggest financial mistakes you would have ever made in your life. If Kaylee never earns over £21,000, she'd never have to repay a penny. You'd remortgaged your house, borrowed £40,000. You're going to have to repay that, whatever happens. She never gets a job. You've just borrowed £40,000 and you've paid it, and she would have never had to repay it. You've thrown the money down the loo.
It's shocking.
It is quite shocking.
Even if she's paid more, she still might not earn enough to repay her initial borrowing, at real terms, before it wipes after 30 years.
But isn't the interest expensive?
Yeah, the interest, another brownie, is adding up. It's inflation plus 3%. It'll be 6.3% starting from this September. But still, if you never earned over £21,000, well, you'd never pay that interest, so it's irrelevant. If you earned £30,000, you still probably wouldn't have cleared all your initial borrowing, so the fact that interest has been added to this virtual account is still irrelevant. Only high earners will ever come close to repaying the interest. For many people, student loans are interest-free. It's only worth paying tuition fees up front if you're guaranteed to be a high earner after university. Yet as you can take a loan and repay whenever, without penalty, you needn't rush the decision. People do change. You decided before you wanted to be a barrister. You get to the end of university, you decide you want to be a poet. Now, most poets do not earn a lot of money. There could be better ways to help your children financially. One worry is they won't be lent enough to live on. Do you want to know my biggest problem with university finance? The loan isn't big enough. Another trick is don't pay up front. Take the loan, accept the interest hit, but keep your cash in high-rate savings until graduation. Then, if they're going to have a high-earning profession, clear the fees. But even so, you could probably use the money for something better, such as a deposit for a mortgage or preventing them getting another type of loan, like a car loan. Now, remember, with a normal loan, It isn't proportionate to your income. You lose your job, you still got to pay it. It does go on your credit file. There will be debt collectors and the interest rates will likely be a lot higher. So if you're going to save your money up to help your kids, make sure it's going to where it will help them most, which in many cases isn't paying off their student loan.
Kaylee and Kathy are much more relaxed about the future.
I hope I've helped to put your mind at rest.
You really have. It's completely changed the way I'm thinking about it.
Thank you
so much.
Now you know the cost, you can decide if it's worth it.
Yes.
1.